Hello and welcome to Teacher Talk, the podcast for teachers who are lifers but still want to have a life. This is Jared, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, Johanna. Hi, Johanna.
Hi, Jared.
What are we going to talk about today?
Parents.
What are we going to talk about parents for?
Well, because they're the thing that comes with the kid. How do you talk to them? How do you make them a part of the experience?
You teach at a school for orphans, and then problem solved. Because talking to parents can be difficult.
It's scary and hard and stressful and yeah.
Well, we'll save what's scary. Everyone knows what's scary and hard and stressful about it. So what do you do to manage that, to make it less scary and hard and stressful?
I like to turn my students into the mouthpiece of the classroom. So the communication is coming through the student lens rather than from me.
So you send papers home with the students?
No.
So what do you do?
I do all sorts of things, and it looks different depending on the class structure, whether I have a small selection of students or whether I have hundreds of students. Basically, I create prompts and opportunities for students to talk to their parents about what's happening in the classroom or about the learning. So I'm supposed
I don't believe you, but I'm glad you went right to the thing I don't believe.
You don't believe what?
Which is whenever you ask your kid, how is school today? The answer is, there's two answers. What are the two answers? They're both one-word answers.
Fine or good.
Or good. Those are the two things that school could have been. And then, did you learn anything?
No.
Or?
Yes.
No, they don't ever say yes, because that would lead to follow-up questions.
Oh.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, if your plan is to draft students into your communicating to parents plan, I don't think you've got very good soldiers.
No, I do.
So how do you do that?
Okay, so at the secondary level, I used the fact that all students had, or 99% of my students had their own technology devices, and then if they didn't, we were a one-to-one school, and so we could do emails. But we took pictures.
And technology devices means phones, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would take pictures. So let's say I even have a sub. Let's say it's a day with a sub. You could have students take a picture of their work at the start or of their learning. Let's say they're writing a paper. And then you have them take a picture at the end. Or you give a prompt and you have them take a picture and then you send the picture and a question to their parent. If they aren't connected to their parent, a trustworthy adult, sometimes that can even be someone in the school setting. You share the work with pictures.
Like on their Snap stories or whatever the kids do.
Now, I'm not saying you gotta build up expectations of how do we use technology and all that jazz. But the communication of a picture of their work or of their learning is a great way to A, keep students focused on their learning, but B, to allow the parent to look into the classroom without being in the classroom. And it's not work for me.
Right.
That's like the last 3 minutes of class where kids would want to socialize anyway, and they want to use their phones anyway. And I just tell them, show me. They would hold up their phone, and I'd say, just show me the text, and it says mom, and I see a picture of their work and the question. And, you can check 30 kids' phones in less than a minute with them just holding it up. I mean, I guess if they want to go through the challenge of creating a fake mom that they're sending all this stuff to.
Either way.
But I never had that happen. That's a lot of energy, I suppose.
Sort of like when you have to do health assessments for health insurance at corporate job place.
Oh, yeah?
And now you actually have to do them, sort of, I think. But when they first started rolling this control people through nudging them type philosophy, they knew you could just go and look up what the right numbers are and then self-report the correct numbers. But the theory is that if you want to do all the work to look up the right numbers, it's still kind of good for you to create awareness of your numbers. So even if you were the equivalent here is making up a fake mom on your phone, you're still like engaged in what you would be telling mom by faking it even, right?
Correct. Right. Well, and just knowing, like, so for example, if we worked on say we're doing project-based learning for an entire week, and we know at the end of each class, we're going to take a picture of the project we are working on and send it to someone, even if they're sending it to a fake version of themselves that they have labeled as dad, they're still being forced to see that, oh, look, Monday's picture and Tuesday's picture look the same.
There's no progress.
There's no progress.
Right.
At the elementary level, it's a little bit more challenging. I do have students take pictures of their work. I will say that kindergarten and first grade, I've trained older students at the elementary level to manage the actual taking of the picture part for me. In second grade is when I start training kids to take pictures of their own work, and then they send it home. And there's tons of apps that you can use. I tend to focus on sending home learning product versus just a picture of the kid in the classroom.
Right.
Which those are good too, but
the parent knows that you were in a classroom, right? Like they already figured that part. It's what were you doing, really, that we're trying to engage.
Well, it changes the how was school today conversation if the parent has a picture of what you were working on.
Right. Now they can ask about something or you have something to think about sharing.
Because the kid needs that as well, right? They need that cue in. And then a lot of those apps, even like my students are able to type out answers to questions that I've already given. And so that is a focus of parent interaction that I find more effective.
Is that it for the day-to-day planning?
That's my day-to-day. I want to create those positive interactions with parents that are focused around the learning. I don't do any sort of go like read this, or I've got this Google page, or I've got this handout. I think those take enormous amounts of time for teachers, and I don't think that parents connect to the classroom through those resources. And so me personally, I haven't found those to be a good use of time.
So like whether it's printed in the kids folder or an email or something, like here's I'm Mr. Jared and this is what we did in your kid's classroom today type stuff. Like that's just not a good bang for your buck.
Right. Yes.
Even though you can send the same thing, you can write it once, send it to all the parents. It just doesn't land.
They don't care about all the other kids, right? I mean, they do, but they don't. The one that they love and would die for is like just their kid. They want to see.
I don't really care about the other kids in my kids' class, so.
But now I will say this. Forget the handout, but creating a 3-minute video for parents that you send to them, or creating an update where they see you and they're interacting with like video you. Now that's worth the effort, in my opinion.
This is probably actually a little less effort once you're used to doing it.
Right, and you can reuse them. I mean, if you create a welcome to the classroom, you can reuse that video, and it's something that lets parents see your personality and see you, and don't try and be perfect. You're not Hollywood, right? Just set up your computer, turn it on, keep it short, extremely short. I wouldn't recommend anything over 3 minutes. And that is a great way for parents to connect to real you and very little work for yourself.
I mean, I'm thinking about handouts and email that I get, and I mostly don't read them. Like, as a parent from my kids' teachers, it's...
I'm glad we're just announcing that. Hopefully they're not listening.
Hopefully they are listening. I mostly don't read them, and when I do read them, there's nothing, you're right, there's no personal connection there. It's like a stranger in my company sent me an email. Like, there's content there that might be relevant to my interests if I take the time to read it, which I'm probably not gonna. But there's like zero, like, I care or I feel like this person cares in it or maybe a tiny bit if they're, but I just, you don't feel it and you don't really believe it off of the written word in that type of format. But a video, like, gives you the chance to be liked, right? Like they can see you and connect with you as a person in a way that I think is just not possible outside of. I bet you could write a handwritten, personal, real envelope stamp letter and create a personal connection with the parents of your students. That would work in the written word. But but that's about 1,000 times more work than about the equal thing I think you could get with a video.
And I've done that. I mean, I used to make it a mission to send every single student a personal handwritten note home. For example, my behavior management plan, I have a video that communicates that to parents. And that type of thing being communicated out to parents from me where they can see actual me, it builds a better connection than anything I could send home typed out, even if I sign it. Now the trick is you can't just send the link. You need to include, if you can, you like want embedded? You want the YouTube picture to come up where they have to click on the button, and not all email will do that. But if you can get even a picture of you in the video and then a link underneath,
they'll see that it's a video.
Then they'll click on that link. They need to kind of see it. Okay.
Have the kids take pictures of their day-to-day work because it turns them, it's a self-assessment. It's like a natural self-assessment thing. And it gives them something to talk about with the parents, and it gives the parents something to ask about.
Right, for projects. I'm not talking like I filled out this form, but project learning that goes over several class times.
And then communicate with videos?
Yes.
Any other day-to-day practices to have efficient communication with parents?
No. At a certain point, though, you need to call a parent on the phone.
Why?
Generally, it means because the student is falling outside the normal parameters of what you need to do for every other kid. That could be because you're struggling with getting them to learn. It could be that they're learning at a rapid rate. It could be that their behaviors are struggling, or it could be that you're just failing to bond or connect with that kid. Typically, a phone call is more problem-based, but that doesn't mean the problem is a negative one. It could be essentially a positive problem.
Sure. Okay. What do we do on phone calls?
Okay, so trick number 1, I always make phone calls 5 minutes before kids are going to be coming in my classroom.
Why?
Because then that means that phone call only lasts 5 minutes.
You have a natural endpoint?
Yes, kids will come in. There will be noise. The parent will know that we cannot talk on the phone anymore. Or I call like 5 minutes before I know they need to pick up their kid because they're out in car line. Or, you want to pick a point where in about 5 minutes they're going to need to not be on the phone anymore.
And that's for both of you, I assume?
Right. They love that child. They would talk for 30 minutes to help their child be successful. And you as a teacher also care about that child, and you don't just want to say, like, I gotta go now.
Because they're never going to end the conversation.
No.
Right? Like, this isn't, it's like, okay, I feel like we've discussed everything we need to. Have a good day. Like, that's never, ever, ever going to happen.
No.
And then you don't want to be perceived as shorting them in any way. Like, you could end the conversation, but you don't want to be perceived as wanting to end it.
Right.
So having a natural endpoint just removes risk from the equation.
Absolutely.
And helps you keep from burning up too much energy or time on it.
Right. You might have 4 other phone calls to make, so you have to space them out where you can...
You can't make them all 5 minutes before...
You kind of can, right? You do one 5 minutes before kids come back from lunch. Okay. You do one You can do one right away in the morning before I try and reduce parent contact on the phone as much as possible, but sometimes when there's one, so you can go weeks and not need to do one, and then you'll have one day where you have like
It rains, it
4.
pours.
Yeah.
That's trick 1. 5 minutes before a natural endpoint. What else we get?
Next, even if you're calling for a negative reason, you are going to find something that you genuinely believe is true about their kid, that you love about their kid.
The old sandwich the negative and the positive feedback thing.
Sandwich it.
Okay.
Very important. Then state the facts and only the facts. So don't say, I'm calling because
little Jimmy just sucks, right?
I can't get him to sit still. Like, not those types of facts.
Oh, yeah, I can't get him to sit still is probably a bad one.
Right. And instead,
Jimmy's having difficulties focusing in class.
on Monday,
Even better.
get really, this is what's that detective show from the 60s? Joe Friday.
From this, Dragnet.
Dragnet.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Just the facts, right? On Monday, Jimmy got up 7 times to sharpen his pencil, even though he was requested to sit back down the second time.
You're missing out on Dragnet, right? Like, because Monday morning, January 27th, 1967, it was hot in Los Angeles. Jimmy, you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
He always talk about what temperature it was.
Yeah, that's true. Even though I think there's only really one temperature for Los Angeles, isn't it?
Well, not according to Joe Friday.
But that meant we were at level 1. Reference your behavior thing. I'm calling you today because we're at level 2. He repeatedly got up and crossed the room to talk to a friend on the other side of the room rather than do what he was supposed to. Mm-hmm. Then don't end there. You have to end with, what are some tricks or techniques you have at home that help Jimmy to focus when he doesn't want to do what's requested?
Right. You're engaging them as an ally.
Right, and you're telling them what you want to feed. We don't want to talk about the fact that Jimmy sharpened his pencil a million times. No. That doesn't matter. We don't want to talk about the fact that he then got up out of his seat and talked to his friend and who was the friend and all that.
All we're doing here is making it better.
We are making it better, and we're assuming that this happens at home, and we're assuming that they have solutions.
Right. Because, and then what happens if they don't? Then they're not going to be mad that you don't.
So let's say they're like, we have no idea. Jimmy is never, ever distracted at home.
I mean, there are no pencil sharpeners at home.
Right. We never have an issue when he is experiencing things he doesn't want to do, that he doesn't just get up and do them. Oh, tell me more about that. Now is not the time to have conflict. Like, if they completely and blatantly disagree with what you're saying, ask, well, what are some things, how is your house structured? What are some ideas that I could be implementing in my classroom that would help prevent this concern? Like, assume that they are what's the guy on the top of the mountain?
Guru?
The guru on top of the mountain. They are the guru of this child, and all they are doing is feeding you information. Even if you as a teacher are like, can't actually be possible, right, and none of this will actually work, it does not help you to disagree with them on the phone.
Right.
Take everything that they are going to do and say, okay, so I'm going to try and do X, Y, and Z. Does that sound like what you're saying? Yes, that sounds like what I'm saying. You are building an ally.
Okay.
However, that's very, very rare.
Right. I figured.
Most of the times if you lead them in with what are some things that you're doing at home that help when they don't want to do something, but it's still something we need to do, they will most likely say, I don't know, that's something we've really been struggling with.
Right. Now what?
I have some ideas of how we might be able to try something. You could try it at home and I could try it at school. Do you want to go in as a team?
Still with the allies?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, you should already have in advance what your thoughts are. I'm going to try isolated seating with Jimmy where he's seated right next to my teacher desk. And I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to give him a task and I'm going to give him a set amount of time. And then if he doesn't get it done in the set amount of time, there will be a pre-approved consequence. What are some consequences you think I could provide in the classroom that will help motivate him to do what he's supposed to during the timer? And then now, even if you're like, I don't think this parent is ever going to do any of this at home.
Right. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And
what
you
matters
don't know
is
that.
that they're on team do this.
Right. Because if this doesn't work, whatever you come up with, as you move through your behavior steps, going to be including more and more people. And so you want you and the parent to always come to that table as a team.
Right. Because there's just no point in saying, if they're saying, well, her idea didn't work, and that's why it didn't work, because her idea was bad, everything is more difficult.
Correct.
Interdict that. Nip it in the bud.
Right.
As Barney Fife used to say.
Right.
Okay. Is it recap time?
I think we are, because I think we need to take parent-teacher conferences and have that be like a whole
Spoiler
separate...
alert for the next episode. Parent-teacher conference is like a special form of parent communication.
And there's so much more that you could do. It's just, I really want to focus, what we've focused on here is the biggest bang for your buck. What takes little amounts of time on your part, but heaps a big reward.
Right, because we talked about this offline a little bit, and it fits into broader themes about your philosophy is you're being efficient with this communication. Because the natural thing to do with communicating with parents is to talk as much as they want to talk and in the same type of terms that they talk about and act like you're like a second parent for the student, right?
Right. That is very effective. That works.
Right.
That will burn you out.
Right, because you just can't, you've got 20-something of them.
They might have 3 kids and you might have 25 or you might have 700 and you're just hoping to remember every kid's name. So these are systems that
will help you get out of that natural way of doing things and getting into a smart way.
Yes, a smart way of doing it.
And those things were enlist the kids, incept in their kid minds, get Leonardo DiCaprio to go in and implant ideas in their dreams to talk to their parents about what they did in school.
By sharing picture evidence.
Well, that's even easier than hiring Leo DiCaprio.
Right, you're sending pictures of the learning, you can send pictures of the kids doing the learning, but that tends to not cause the same conversation.
Of the learning.
Of, like, project learning.
You're going to use videos instead of written words.
Right, you're going to make very short videos where they get to see your smile of face, talking about upcoming learning things. Keep them very short.
Connect with you as a person who cares.
Yes.
It's like a political candidate. When was the last time you voted for a politician because you read something that they thought? It just doesn't work. You gotta see them so you can see that they...
Yeah.
So-and-so is a politician who cares, and you can see how much they care because of these people who are just like you that they're holding hands with or hoeing corn or whatever it is that they do on commercials. You gotta see them.
Right, and if you are like, I just don't think I can make a video by myself, then enlist a teaching partner and make it together. If you teach at the elementary level and you're like, well, but I'm the art teacher and I don't have another art teacher, well, then you and the music teacher make a video together where you just say to the music teacher, hey, so what are they working on this month? And she or he answers, and then they ask you the same question, and you'll naturally want to smile at each other. And that's all they want to see is that you're human, and they 30-second to 60-second spiel on what their kid's learning. They'll watch that versus read that in a way that's better.
And then the last thing we talked about was be smart about phone calls.
Yes.
Have a natural endpoint. Sandwich the feedback. You're going to talk about something you genuinely like about their student before you get started. And then all of the problem talk is in the context of making sure that they are an ally.
Yes.
They're on team problem fix.
Team solution finding, and you are letting them take lead on solutions.
We want them to own the solution. Even if it's your ideas, we want them to have ownership
Yes.
of the ideas. These are our ideas or my ideas. I am on board with the ideas.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Johanna.
Thank you, Jared.
Teacher Talk, the podcast for teachers who are lifers but still want to have a life.